Welcome. This is Once a Nurse, Always a Nurse, and I'm your host, Leanne Meier. I'm always happy to be here for this show because it means I'm talking to nurses and people who love healthcare and love helping people who are involved in healthcare. So this show is no different. We're going to be doing the same kind of thing. Today's show is interesting in that I don't know very much about it. We're going to talk about childhood and religious trauma and how that might impact us as nurses in nurse burnout. So, this is something I've experienced and didn't put the two things together. I will have two guests today. One is Kasey Pacheco, who is a nurse and working in community health, and the other is Rissi Carrey, and she has a master's in social work and psychologist, I believe. She's going to correct me, I'm sure, because I bet I got that wrong. So first, Kasey is somebody I met, I think it's got to be a year ago, and I fell in love with her immediately, and I haven't changed my mind since. It's just gotten to be more so. So Kasey is now a CEO of Preservers of Life, LLC, that she created. She's also a content creator. She's very talented. She is a nurse guide and encouragement coach, and I can vouch for that. She's works with executives and networking. She is involved in corporate wellness, which hallelujah. And she's a holistic healer and a retreat facilitator. And she's one of those people that she walks in the room and the whole place lights up. One of the things she talks about is that the true value of life itself is so precious that it must come into our conscious awareness so we can protect it, enjoy it, and use it for the benefit of ourselves and every other life on this planet. I love that. Kasey, welcome to Once a Nurse, Always a Nurse.
Hi, Leanne. Thank you for
Hi.
having me. Hello.
My favorite day is when I get to talk to you.
Same here. Same
Yeah.
here.
Can you just quickly relate what brought you to nursing and then what brought you to where you are right now?
Okay. I actually wanted to be a scientist.
Oh,
And when
okay.
I love experimenting. And when I
Mhm.
was about 12 years old, there was a little lady in our community, and she didn't have any family members. So my family took her in, and my sisters, of course, they weren't not going to change diapers. So it was on me. And I absolutely fell in love with it. The doctor would make house calls, and she made me her nurse. And from there on, I knew I wanted to be a nurse.
And the career that you created for yourself right now, what were you looking for? What did you want to be able to deliver with this level of your experience?
So I think what my intention was is to elevate the practice of nursing, higher level of a higher standard of care from the models that are actually being delivered currently in our healthcare system.
Yes.
And I didn't really realize the type of care that was coming because I never actually went to the hospital. So when I gave birth to my son, that was my first time through the healthcare system. And I was absolutely appalled to see what healthcare and nursing became.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in the hospital.
Mhm.
My second guest is a newer friend of mine, and her name is Rissi Carrey. And she is a therapist and founder of CEO of Riss Oasis, which I think is a clever using her name and then the idea of oasis. It just really works for me. So she is working with transformation. She wants to have transformation come together with emotional wellness. And she does that. She's on a mission to guide individuals toward profound emotional well being and transformative breakthroughs. That is clearly mission focused. So she says that she helps women emotionally detox no matter what their condition is so that they can live their best lives. Overcoming burnout as a frontline provider she can work with people in 7 weeks with a system she has that she calls emotional detox. So she has a master's, I think I mentioned that before, in clinical social work, and also integrative nutrition, so holistic health. So welcome, Rissi, to Once a Nurse, Always a Nurse.
Hello, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. We're having a little coffee party here. So, Rissi, what brought you to healthcare in the first place, and then to what you're doing right now?
So, behavior health has always been very intriguing for me because, growing up in my part of the world, West Africa, mental health was something that we never addressed.
Uh-huh.
So you will see things and it will be blamed on other stuff. So I was fascinated from the get go in reference to behavior health and how it impact families.
Mm-hmm.
But 3 years ago when COVID hit, so I work in a group home setting, and people were asked to volunteer to take care of the 14-bed residents.
Mm-hmm.
And it was just me and one other colleague. And when we signed up, we stayed for 14 days straight, 24 hours with little sleep. And we are working with people who didn't have an understanding, developmental disability. So they didn't know why we're saying this to, physically distance. The reason why now you can't have a communal dinner, you can have the dinner in your room, because there was outbreak. There was outbreak in the home. People were sent to the hospitals and they couldn't understand. So you are dealing with the behavior and also trying to manage sick people. And 24 hours we were giving the medication, we were the ones making the meals and cleaning at the same time, 24/7 for 14 days. So when I was able to absorb all of that, and then I realized what the burnout, but also the emotional situation, particularly I had like visceral attacks emotionally, the breakdown, right?
Mm-hmm.
I was like, no, I need to be better prepared for what is unfolding right in front of me.
Mm-hmm.
So quickly, that is when I was like, you know what? Let me upgrade to this psychotherapy thing, because
Yeah.
when this whirlwind is done with, we would have this mental health situation that I experienced in real time to manage. And so that is what made me add on to my
What
already behavior health
what
background.
I think I most appreciate about you is you're such a practical person. So where I might go to emotional response, you go to, okay, what's going to happen here? What's what's not working? What's working? Let's go in the way that's working. And I think that's so wonderful. So let's come back to this topic of childhood and religious trauma, and then let's start with that. I guess let's just start with that. What does childhood trauma entail? And how, eventually bring that into what's the context of nursing. So let's just kind of speak as you want to. Maybe we can start with Kasey, and then just pop in if you have something to add or.
Okay, I guess I can start with my story. Actually, my story meeting Rissi. I met her. She reached out to me actually as an emotional coach. I never heard of it before,
Mhm.
but I just wanted to share that I was burnt out after being in healthcare. And Rissi touched on topics I think is not spoken of enough
Mhm.
in the healthcare terms, as far as what's the true reason why we burn out. And a lot of it is, if I can share, Reese,
Sure. Go ahead.
um, she talked about the people who chose to become nurses in the first place. There are a certain type of people, and
Mhm.
sometimes our attachment to the career is actually a trauma response where we were always the people to take care of everyone, and that got turned into a really good thing, and then that became our identity. And then so now we're burning out, but we have this disparity where we think, oh my gosh, I'm always the one to take care of everybody, but also on the other end, I need to take care of myself, and I can't reconcile that, and I feel bad, and just going through childhood trauma and working that with why my emotions are so shot and why I feel so broken and despondent and burnt out and
Mhm.
kind of opposite from wanting to help people, sick and tired
Yeah,
of
right.
people.
Go away. I don't need any more.
Yes. So
Yeah.
that was my introduction with Rissi. And I just thought, man, I wish so many other nurses can have this opportunity to even have this discussion.
Yes. What are your thoughts when Kasey came to you? Um, I think you just have sort of an instinct that hones in on people. I mean, I haven't had a chance to work with you yet myself, but that's just the sense that I get from you, that you're just like laser beam.
Yeah, I go under the hood right away. So I see beyond the facades, I see beyond the pep talks, because Casey is so right. Burnout happens to us based on, where your parents were born, when they were born, were they products of the depression? We carry trauma even in utero and all these different things, and they are layered. And so we come out already wired for certain things.
Yeah.
And so even when you think, oh yeah, so I became a nurse, yeah, something. Look at your background, look at where you grew up from. You are used to being the one fixing stuff
And enjoy doing that.
and enjoy doing that.
Hmm.
But it gets to a point where then you let yourself go because the fixing becomes your fix.
Hmm.
Because in that adrenaline rush of helping everyone, your stuff is repressed. You don't deal with it. And yet it is actually festering. So what happens in this situation is that then you have layers of your own situations, traumas that you don't take a look at, because so long as you are helping people, you don't have to look at you. But I believe what COVID came to do for us is just let us see that no, you are not okay. And yes, there are systemic issues, but we cannot address the systemic situations without addressing us. And looking within me is scary, because that means I have to sit with myself. I have to sit with my thoughts. I have to sit with my past and my background. And some of us are buried so deep, we don't want to go there.
Or we think we've already dealt with it. I just had that happen last week where I was doing something with dream therapy, and I was taking an old dream that I had that was, I didn't really, well, I guess I did think it was traumatic. I've had this repetitive dream for 50 years.
Hmm.
And I just got to the point where I thought, oh, I've gotten to the point where I know this dream is not going to hurt me. I'm going to survive this. It's going to be okay. And I just thought I had dealt with it, but the dream keeps coming back. And I realized that I'm doing the same things that started that traumatic dream. And even though I feel like I've gotten so much better, I really haven't changed. I'm still dealing with it the same ways that don't heal.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
And I love the fact that you have come to the awareness that you haven't changed.
yeah, it's
Right.
time to dig deep
But a
again and
dream
do
is
some of
also
that
so
work.
kind, because the dream has been reoccurring for 50 years to get your attention.
Yeah. So let's talk about define religious trauma and how it manifests in healthcare environments. And you did kind of a little bit talk about that those of us who have a caring sense, we get attracted to this work that is all about caring, and people take advantage of that. And we have a really hard time pushing back on it. Is that what you mean by the trauma we have from before we're bringing forward into our care now?
Well, I think for my experience, and I can say for a lot of people in my generation, we're going through a profound spiritual awakening. And when I met Rissi, she was I really think it was God sent, because she was a facilitator for that awakening. And a lot of it actually, the way it intertwines with burnout is based on your religious upbringing or your background. You have a certain sense of how you need to show up and take care of the world. And it's a little bit where, especially as a nurse going into business, or a nurse wanting to, hire level up in their care, you have this conflict with money and um, abandoning what you once thought. Even being able to charge for your services, you don't even think spirituality has anything to do with it. But when you really look back at healthcare, a lot of nurses, a lot of hospitals were ran by religious institutions. So the entire population, and sometimes we ourselves, have a view of what the people who are taking care of other people should be paid or not paid. Or I know for me, I had a hard time with money and reconciling that with spirituality and being okay to adjust my views spiritually. I came from a very, very strict conservative religious background and adapting and thinking, money is not evil, it's actually necessary.
Yeah.
Rissi had to work through all of that, but it played into burnout because if you're not making enough money, you have to work a double shift. You
Yeah.
have to. And if you don't have even though you know you need more money, you want more money, you're lobbying for more money, if on the basis your baseline, you don't think you're worthy of it, you don't think you should have it, even if you get it, it's not gonna, you won't be able to hold on to it. So
Who do I need to give it to?
yes, who do I need to give it to, how do I give it away? So it's a lot of work, not just about, oh, I'm burnt out, but a lot of these subliminal tones as far as what's my values, what's my belief system like, am I changing, am I pivoting, how do I do that, what does that look like? A lot of that has to do with burnout.
Mhm. I'm going to guess that you learned this, Rissi, by yourself, or you recognize that that was happening in yourself, and that's how you recognize it in other people.
Absolutely. And I have had an extensive religious background. I'm actually a licensed minister, or
Oh,
as well in the evangelical, circles and all of that. And yeah, that kindness and that good heart, people would twist the text, the biblical text, and take advantage of you and put a little bit of sugar coating in the name of God, right? And so it becomes the abuse is sort of sugar coated, and so you don't recognize it until it becomes your own pattern as well, because now you are feeding into that abuse. You don't
yes,
expect much, and it is piling on you. And there is a supporting text, so you go through this disorientation in reference to the faith piece, that empathy, and now maybe this thing impacting you, you are burned out, and then it's also affecting your family. But I think the key piece is also we attract these things as well,
yes,
and that is the key. And so for me, when I went through my breakdown in reference to, okay, this religious thing is not working, this setting is another institution that is taking advantage of me. Let me pull away and look within me. Why am I attracting these things? Why was I that vulnerable and gullible in that spaces? Then I realized that there are things and roots deep down in me that I needed to pull those weeds. And it was painful, but it was real and raw. And then I realized that, wow. And we show up in our professional spaces with these things because, Kasey, as you were speaking, even though I had brought programs to that behavioral health space, and this actually 2 days ago, I made 14 years in that profession. So I did all of that. Do you know? Nobody, I
congratulations.
wasn't, thank you. Nobody recognized me. I wasn't
Oh,
I wasn't getting the promotion. People were just going before me.
yeah.
So I had to pull back and say, why is it that I do the work and
Mhm.
other people are getting
Yes,
credit?
me too.
Yes.
You see what I'm saying? So, but it goes beyond that. And even sometimes I would even be bold to say it is also our purpose and calling so that we can craft what we've crafted to help others. So you have to experience the whole gamut of what it looks like. And so I
Yeah,
had to look within, and the pain and the fact that I had nobody to guide me actually took me to this deep place where I had to sort of strip before myself, but also trust that something is going to come out of it.
yeah.
That was the scary part.
So I'm not sure if we're jumping, and if we are, bring me back again. But I'm wondering, um, are there strategies? Are there techniques? Are there things that you can share in just a few minutes here that would help people understand that this is me? It's almost like, oh my gosh, she's talking about me. So this is me, and I'm in exactly what you're saying. I'm in that caregiver mode where I love doing it, and people take advantage of it, and then I feel frustrated and used. So where do we go from here? What are some things, excuse me, that we could do to start moving in a different direction?
The hardest piece in this discussion is tuning into you. Caregivers don't tune into ourselves. We need to unlearn how to be giving, and carve out time. And that is the scariest piece. But there are techniques. If you can do the breathing, if you can do mindfulness and relaxation, and I have infographics, I have actually steps for us to take to get you in that relaxed mood. Because just like we give the patients, we give them anesthesia to go through surgery. Why are we not anesthetizing ourselves into a place where I can look in? So we have the skills for other people. We would rub somebody's back, right, to calm their nerves in reference to a procedure they are going to get. Why are we not doing that for ourselves? And most people come to me with the proverbial burnout, but as Kasey said, there is something attached to it. And then before they know it, they are actually dealing with the roots, because that burnout umbrella is a surface thing. But calming your nerves and working with your nervous system, we allow our nervous system to work against us.
Mm-hmm.
But we got to learn how to work with your nervous system. And I use this analogy like a car. Some of us have this remote control, with for our cars, right? Where we put it on and then the car will start warming up and stuff like that. But
Yes.
I
I
have a
wish.
problem
I
with
live
the
in
fact
Minnesota. I wish.
I have a problem with the fact that we don't learn to have a remote control for our nervous system and we let it run the show all the time. You should be able to reel yourself in, put yourself to that state of rest, intentionally cultivate it. And most of us have not even learned that we can do that.
I'm curious, Kasey. So when you started working with Rissi, how did that look for you? I mean, I think you and I have a pretty similar personality and kind of more of an emotional level. Um, when did you start to recognize that what she's saying is relevant to you, and that what was it that helped you change?
From day one, I knew that from day one, from our first session, I knew definitely this is gonna work. Um, but what went off in my head was rest is not a luxury; it's a necessity. If you're gonna function and perform and be of help in any capacity, you need to know how to rest. And I didn't know how to rest. I don't think I ever really rested because I thought rest is a vacation or a retreat or something that feels good. But you actually have to do the work to learn how to rest, to learn how to soothe your nervous system, to pay attention to it. So I think from day one, I knew this was so valuable, but it's we're in a mindset that as nurses, we do so much for our patients. And we are kind of coddled in our society where someone does the work for you. But with this type of work, this inner work, this emotional work, you have to do it for yourself. Everybody has to do the work for themselves. And Rissi was a guide to helping me really doing that work where it actually becomes part of your lifestyle and learning how to rest. But in rest, you realize that you can finally take better care of others because then you learn how to take care of yourself.
Okay,
Oh,
here's the number one question nurses ask on this. Okay, we're on a nursing unit. We all have our assignments. We're already overworked, each of us, and we, let's say you're having you have to go to the bathroom and you have to go now, and it's going to take a little while. And asking somebody else to help you just feels impossible. Because the feeling is, okay, if I don't do my portion of the job, somebody else has to pick it up, and I don't want to make that happen. So, Rissi, I'm guessing you hear this a lot.
Yes.
It's letting go because we don't want somebody else to have to do it.
But where does that come from? And it doesn't have to be that way. Because if you are neglecting yourself for just a 2 minute break where you can have even mantras and things to go and reset, you are releasing. Going to the bathroom is a release.
Mhm.
So the physical release, and then you breathing in and out, and even the cold water on your hands can reset you so you come back even more energized for the people you are caring for. If we are compromising that, then there is a bigger problem.
Mhm.
And I think that is where the unlearning comes from, because I believe from even your trainings, right? Your trainings, and even us as social workers are in the same thing. We have been taught that, oh, you are saving the world, and you don't
Yes.
have to earn enough money. Money is not an issue. It is, and even around COVID, people were patient facing, like I did with these 2 weeks. Do you know that the 2 weeks that we were there, because of my holistic background, I took thieves oil and all this holistic stuff with me and my colleague. Can you imagine? And every morning we would order fresh juice. So we would order things like the celery juice with me, maybe some apple and stuff like that. And that kept us. But do you know that nobody even sent us like a basket of anything?
Really.
Essential. I mean, and the director of the program actually came to see how things were. Do you know they were in the hallway? We are talking about a 3 floor, like a family house kind of style, 3 floors. He only stood in the corridor and said, "How you guys doing?" And he left. Do you
Yeah.
know he was down with COVID that night? And we stayed 14 days.
mhm,
Wow. Wow.
So it has to start from nursing school.
mhm,
We
Yeah,
have to teach nursing school, add retreats to nursing curriculums,
mhm,
I agree with that.
where self care is front and center from all the other things the nurses have been taught.
mhm,
So let's take the nurses who are just getting out of nursing school now, and they're so excited to get their first job. And they almost like jump at the very first job offered to them because they, are that feeling of, oh my gosh, nobody's ever going to hire me. So let's say Kasey is the new grad RN, and she has just been offered a job, but what does she need to be asking to make sure that that job is going to be supporting her as opposed to her supporting the job? Rissi, what would you ask her to make sure she knows before she takes the job?
What are her values? And she can only learn this when she has been quiet enough to know.
Mm-hmm.
Because the excitement of being in that help profession is great. But when we don't learn to go inward to see what are my values and how would I support a job that aligns to those values so that I can not only nurture the people in my care, but also nurture myself. And so if they've done all this pre-work, and I would say that even orientation, nurses orientation should also cover these things, including social work orientation. Because as frontline workers, we are taught to sacrifice ourselves. Even if it's not word, the words are not used, it's modeled, right? Because I've had colleagues go to people's homes to administer care and they've been killed. And I know there are nurses who have also
Right.
suffered the same fate. Why are these institutions not supporting our well-being and thinking thoroughly that maybe this is maybe meet in the park, maybe meet in the atrium and all these different places? Why are we the afterthought? So I feel like we need to reverse engineer everything we've learned to begin to put ourselves first. And I feel like these new graduates are pushing back. And
Yes.
kudos to them for doing so.
Yeah.
They are.
Okay.
If I may jump in there for a
Please
minute,
do.
I've been this year. I actually have been working on safety because, like she said, nurses are dying, taking care of patients, and the response is very lacking. But something that Rissi helped me to see is that this is where your faith, not religion, but your spirituality really comes in,
Mhm.
because it requires a level of faith to go use the bathroom, knowing your patients will be covered.
Yeah.
And if not, there is nothing you could possibly do while you're in the bathroom to help them. But this level of faith also extends to asking for a raise. This level of faith also extends to when you go on a job interview, you're looking at the director, you're looking at the manager who's going to be your leader, and you're looking at them and seeing, well, do they look like a person that takes care of themselves, or do they look like a person who so proud that they stay late and they have no work life balance? And it takes faith as a new grad to say, I cannot work for a person like that because they're going to expect that of me. And that's not happening. That takes faith. So there is a level of faith as a nurse that you have to have within yourself to bank on yourself and say, I deserve care as well as anybody else.
Uh, there's one thing that jumps into my mind here is my very first job that I took as a graduate nurse was in Denver on a circle unit that had 24 beds, that was a step down ICU unit. And they had people in charge of, somebody was in charge on the day shift, somebody was in charge on the evenings, and somebody on nights. And as a new grad RN, I was hired for the night shift alone, one nurse, 24 patients, and one nursing assistant. So it kind of what you were talking about at the group home reminded me of that. But I felt like I did feel like I was burning out. I managed to do it for 2 years before I said, I can't do this anymore. And I had to leave and get another job that was not going to be as demanding. But I also realized I learned so much during that time as a nurse of how to manage my time, of how to um, recognize things very quickly. Just so many different things that I didn't have time to think them through and whatever else. I had to be able just almost in the second say, oh, something's happening with this patient. I need to do something now. So there's advantages. And I think that's probably, we kind of pat ourselves on the back. Oh, I did this really tough thing and I learned so much from it. And so it's good for other people coming in to do that too. Either of you, any comments?
I would say I have had jobs where it was just really crazy and you learn. And I think that has a lot to do with the person, if you can go away being a victim or a victor. But I think as far as a standard, I think for too long the standard has been, oh, do this because it's really hard and you're going to be really good. You can get good without going through um,
Hell, hell, hell.
like we say in Trinidad, hell and high water. You can learn without being in an environment that keeps your nervous system shut. Because, yes, even though you may have learned those skills, 5, 10, 20, 30 years, what's the ramifications? I see so many nurses and they are in chronic pain because of the things that they did earlier on in the career. Yes, they're awesome nurses, but you can't even walk. You can't even spend time with your grandkids. This is not sustainable for our culture in nursing, to think that the difficulties we face in one environment, it's just we walk away with just learning lessons because our body walks away with something else. And if you just look at nurses all over the country, you're gonna see it was a disservice to them. It was a disservice to their lives.
And we
Exactly.
think it's normal. After a while,
Mhm.
we accept it as, oh, this is what the job is.
Mhm.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And what it also does is it conditions you not to take care of you, not to matter, not to value you. So even when somebody's pleading with you that I'm here to support you, you're like, huh? I'm too busy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you are right, Casey. We are even talking about the physical pain and all that, but then the broken families.
Mhm.
Because when you go home in that state, broken and exhausted, you don't have anything left for
Mhm.
love, for all the different things that,
Nourishment, nourishing
yes,
children
Mhm.
and
exactly,
husband and whoever else is in
exactly.
your life. Yeah.
And nurses don't talk about these things.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's why broken homes and families, because, well, I think in general, we don't communicate what's really in our hearts. And to be able to hear what somebody else has to say in their heart and not shut them down. Oh, can't talk about that. We need to be able to. In some ways, I think nurses are more um, uh, adapted to listening to patients, and so why can't we do that with our families too? With the time we have left, um, what would you what do you feel like the healthcare institutions are going to have to recognize and change in how they support nurses? Um, and how are nurses going to bring that about? Because the organizations do not want to change what they've been doing. Works for them. And so
Nurses,
it's going to have to come from us.
yes, and nurses would have to reverse engineer everything they've learned and begin to focus on themselves and start pushing back.
Mhm.
And with that pushback comes demands, because when you've demanded better for you can demand better at your job. And those systems then would not be able to sustain this status quo anymore. And so until nurses begin to look within and push back, and that is why I feel like the power up cruise is a stepping stone, because then collectively we're going to get together and begin to encourage each other to,
Yeah.
stand up for ourselves.
And also model. It's almost like, when you go to a conference, it's almost the same kind of craziness that you have at work, except it's maybe a little bit more fun and you're not quite as constrained. But I just feel like, I get into those big rooms and the big screen and you're, connected to this PowerPoint. And I don't know, there's something that I just rebel. So, I think that the cruise is the idea of, you've got this huge ship that you can, flow through and, the learning doesn't have to happen in a room. It can happen anywhere. A bunch of people come together for breakfast or whatever it is that is happening. And we can model both, learn from other people's modeling and recognize that other people are learning from how we model. So it's a great opportunity to, in a relaxed environment, in a fun environment, people are having fun around you. It's beautiful. That's I've never been on a cruise, so this is what I'm imagining it's going to be like. So thoughts about what we can do on the cruise, and why should people come on this cruise? I mean, um, for some it's money. Kind of it's like what you just said, where you need to take care of yourself, but I'll do that when everything else is taken care of, right? Um, so I'm the last one, and gee, I just never quite comes up to me getting what I need.
If I can interject, what I would say is something that I think would be necessary is for um, nurses. There are a lot of nurses who like to go cruising, but I think we are so segmented where vacation is apart from nursing.
Yes.
So you go on vacation and you don't want to think anything about work until you get back. So actually being part of a retreat, a cruise where you can actually learn skills and expand your network and actually see a different type, a different model of nurses, because you get to see nurses who are outside of the bedside. You get to see nurses who have actually implemented things in their healthcare region that works. You expand your knowledge so that when you go back, you're not the same person going back. You have more tools, you have more networks, you have more resources. It's an excellent idea.
Hmm. Rissi,
I
your
agree.
thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. And also in a laid back way where it's like you are functioning in your element as a human being and not with your title as a nurse who is rescuing everybody. And I feel like healthcare workers, we need to be able, particularly after COVID, we most of us have not even processed that horror. We haven't had a chance to exhale, even exhalation. And let me tell you something that triggered me yesterday. Just seeing somebody wearing a mask in a hospital setting just did it for me. And some
Hmm.
of us, we have just repressed these things and we think everything is okay, but it's not okay.
Hmm.
And so, be in a setting like that in a supportive way, right? Where we are not talking about chatting and all this, but we are talking about ourselves and how to improve our breathing. The thing we do when we come into this world and the thing we do as we leave. Simple breathing, taking that deep breath so that you can settle your body and be able to just, relax. Most of us don't even know what that looks like. And so I feel like this cruise is going to give us that tool where we'll have these conversations and hold space for each other and support each other.
Yeah. So one of the pillars of what we're going to be um, working on is self-care. So we've been talking quite a bit about that. People will, we all know we're supposed to do self-care. We even think we know what it is because a lot of us are teaching other people how to do self-care, but somehow or another, it escapes us. I woke up at 3 this morning and I know all the things to do. In fact, I did quite a few of them and it just didn't work. But that's something we will definitely be learning from people like you and from other people who didn't even come on the cruise for that purpose. We'll be able to share some of what they've learned. So the second thing is about career care. So that's kind of, you're talking about that too, Rissi, and also Kasey. You have done a phenomenal amount of work of figuring out what is the place I want to be. What is the environment, whether that's a physical environment or just the type of work that I'm doing. Um, and then the third thing we want to do is transforming healthcare. And to me, that's the biggest thing because I'm involved in Power Up Nursing for the last 4 years, and also Nurses Transforming Healthcare. We all talk about how much healthcare has to change, but nobody seems to have the ideas of how do we do that. So what if we got into a space where anybody's idea is just as good as anybody else's idea, and from that come out with what could work, that wouldn't it be something if we walked off that boat and we actually had some action plans that we could go out and start making change in our family, in our community, in the place we're working, all sorts of different things that we could do. And so there's a good idea to bring somebody with you on the cruise. So when you go home, somebody else gets what it is that you got from the cruise and can help support you in it. Any other thoughts? Why should people come on this cruise?
I think you said something earlier about modeling behaviors. I think, doesn't words doesn't teach as much as we think it does. We have a lot of words, especially in this information. We're bombarded with so much information coming at us. But I think we're humans. We are just like the little toddlers on the playground. We're watching other people, and I think people want to see what works. And when we are surrounded by other people who are taking leaps of faith and saying, hey, I want better. I want better for my profession. I want better for my life. I think that is a very, very strong incentive to go back to your work area or your life as a renewed person just by the behaviors you see modeled on the cruise.
Yeah.
Absolutely, I agree. And even when we were having a conversation, and like, how many hours do I work a week? I only do 15, and I squeeze those patients in that 15. And I'm so good at what I do to a point where they are like, "Do you want to expand?" I said, "Nope, I'm not," because me first, right?
Right.
Because what I'm building is for impact. So
15 hours a week.
that's all I do,
I'm
because
impressed.
I want that, because I'm looking at the greater good, right? And
Mhm.
so, in a place with that kind of power up cruise, then we can share these resources and ideas and say, hey, you can exert the same amount of energy and reach maybe 2 million people. Why don't you, me support you do it?
Wow.
So I support and sisterhood and friendships and, I mean, long lasting impact. And for me, the life giving piece of it, because the time we are going to on that cruise will be almost close to the anniversary when COVID really ravaged our shore.
Yes. 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 April 21st to the 26th. So we're getting to the end here. I want to have each of you give your email address or whatever it is that you feel most comfortable for people if they have questions from this podcast, or maybe wanting to connect with you for some help from you. If you feel comfortable with that, Kasey, can you share your email or your address?
Yeah, so it's very easy to contact me. I made myself very discoverable. So I am on LinkedIn, and you can also reach out to me. My email, my website is preserversoflife.com, and my email is casey@preserversoflife.com. It's the same handle for social media, Facebook, Instagram. So I'm pretty findable.
That worked out well. Sometimes you can't get all of them to, coincide. Rissi, can you share?
So you can find me on LinkedIn as well. And I also have this 21-day emotional release right on that link on LinkedIn. But my email is Rissi, Rissi, at risoasis.com. It is very simple. And yes, I'm trying to be everywhere too. And I have a YouTube channel as well, that some of these things, recordings are there. And yes, the 21-day, in less than 21 minutes, you will learn these tacking behaviors and abilities and tools and strategies to warm up your body and help yourself rest. So, yeah.
It sounds wonderful. And I think it's RISOASIS, right? So
Yes.
I think Tanya, my producer, has got two S's in there, so that might not work. But yeah, that's great. So I thank you both for coming. I think we've really covered this topic with not only acknowledging it, but also being able to see there are things that we can do. What it comes down to is our willingness to do the work, to go inside, to look at what maybe isn't as pretty as we would like to have exposed, and really say, what is it I really want, and how do I need to get there? What is it I need to do for myself to get there? It seems simple, but it's hard for a lot of us. So we need some help, like from people like you. Thank you so much, both of you, for being on, and thank you for promoting the Power Up Nursing Cruise in April 21st to the 26th. Sign up now. If you're anything like me, it'll be, well, I'll wait a little longer and see if I've got the money. No, commit the money. You're paying a down payment. So, commit that money that says, okay, I'm going to make this work for myself. I've got some money on the line here. I'm going to make it work. So I hope to see you all there. I for sure hope to see you two there. And anybody else, please come up and introduce yourself to me. And I would love to say hello, and we can have a wonderful discussion. So this is Once a Nurse, Always a Nurse. Thank you for joining us.